Hi everyone, welcome to my Instagram Live with Blondine Bardot. I'm just going to bring her in now. This is part of the BleurArt Takeover series and part of their home takeover series that they've been doing with a number of different people. And just to introduce, hi Blondine, how are you?
Hello, I'm all right. Can you hear me okay?
Good, yeah, very well.
Okay.
I'm just going to briefly introduce everything whilst people are joining, and I'll do a quick tour of the other pieces that I've curated whilst everyone's just coming on. So, hi everyone, welcome to this Instagram Live with Blandine Bardot. It's part of BleurArt's Home Takeover series. Just to introduce Blur, they are an indie art gallery who curate a number of pieces and works from different emerging artists. And this is the last night of their Home Takeover series, in which they've collaborated with a number of people to curate pop-up exhibitions in different homes around the country. I'm just going to show you quickly the pieces that I've curated before we move into the conversation, Blondine, specifically talking about your work, and just so everyone can get a feel for the pieces that are available on Blur's site as well. And so I'm just going to flip the camera around and show the pieces within my space. These are two pieces titled Greenwashing and Small Blue by Joanna Layla. And they look at the effects of climate change and pollution. And really, I chose these pieces because of that message, really, and how art can be a powerful tool to address such issues. The next piece in my series is this. It's called The Rain Doth Fall, and it's by Oscar T. Wilson. And I chose this one specifically because of the mirroring kind of the ferocity of the sea in both of the windows that it's in between. And then these pieces are by Eva Menendez. And again, I just love minimal abstract forms and the way that she's let the ink run freely across the page. And then last but not least, this is your piece, Blondine, which is titled Teardrop. And we will hear more about that now as we speak. So yeah, so that's just a quick snapshot of my curation, and yeah, it's lovely to have you here, Blondine. Have you got a drink ready?
I do actually. I've got a turmeric tea.
Nice. I've gone for a Negroni. Very different and not as healthy probably, right? How are you?
Yeah, I'm good. Yeah, I went for a nice little walk before this, and I love this kind of the time of the evening in the summer. It's lovely. So.
Yeah, golden hour. It's perfect, isn't it? It's very, very nice. It's my favorite time of the day, to be honest. Um, so I'll just introduce myself quickly. I'm Roddy Clarke. I'm a writer, consultant, and presenter within the interiors world. I look at the positive social and environmental impacts of design. And it's been an amazing honor to collaborate with Blur. They're doing a really good job at highlighting and putting the spotlight onto amazing emerging artists around the country. Um, so it's really exciting to see the work that they're doing. And Blondine, it would be great if you could introduce yourself and kind of give us a bit of a background into your journey, into what you create and how it began for you.
Sure. So my name is Blondine, and I've been practicing, well, professionally practicing artist for, gosh, it's been 7 years now that I've really started. And I was always really creative as a child and everything. But originally I studied fashion actually at St Martin's, and then decided it wasn't quite for me, and I studied painting at the Glasgow School of Art. Yeah, and then since then I've been on my own, left to the walls.
And how's it been? I mean, it's been obviously as an artist, especially in the last year, how has it been for you? Has it been a tough year, or has it been an exciting and challenging one that's given you new opportunities?
Um, no, it was very challenging. I have to say, last year was pretty hard. The first lockdown was very hard for me. But in terms of sales and things like that, it was all right actually. I don't know. It seemed that people still wanted art around, so that was good.
Great.
Um, and Yeah, I think, you know, doing things a bit differently has been quite good. So with Blur, doing this home takeover, and also doing a few online exhibitions and things like that with other people. So
Mm,
yeah.
amazing. And so this piece, which is titled Teardrop, and I mean, I chose it because of the way that you use waste materials to create your dyes. But before we move on to your processes, give us a bit of background about this piece specifically. What was the inspiration behind this one?
Um, so I work quite intuitively, and I love collage, so I cut up a lot of things. I start a drawing sometimes, and then I do a bit of collaging, and I've got bits that are left over from one to the other, and I usually work on several pieces. So I just really like those shapes, and I kind of put them together. It often it feels like the piece is telling me what to do. I know it might sound weird, but it kind of does. Because as soon as I do something that doesn't feel quite right, then I know, oh, okay. So that's how it communicates, I guess. I don't hear the piece talking to me, but yeah.
Yeah, amazing. And so moving on to the process of how you create the dyes, do you use vegetable skins to create these amazing pigments? How does that work? How do you get the colors to remain so vibrant? And talk us through the process sort of from beginning to end.
Yeah, so I've been looking into natural dyes for about 2 years now, and I'm still quite new at it, so I'm really not a professional yet. But so there are different things that I do. So sometimes I do dye baths, so with
Yeah.
onion skins or avocado skins and pits. But there are other things you can use. You can use plants. There's a lot of plants that, you know, eucalyptus and rosemary, and I mean the list is endless. But I have only kind of experimented with those two because it takes a really long time. It's quite a lengthy process, and then the other thing, so I dye fabrics with that, and I can use that as a background for a painting, or I reduce it down to an
Okay.
ink, and then I use it as an ink. So it's almost like a concentrated juice of the dye bath.
Uh,
Um,
okay.
so sorry.
That's amazing. It's fascinating how you've kind of figured it out. And this is something that you've worked out yourself, and it was kind of trial and error.
No, no, no. I've, you know, looked around people, some, you know, it's a whole world, natural
Yeah.
dyes. So, yeah, there are loads of people who do a lot of great work teaching other people how to do it. So,
But
um,
what made you think about choosing this route of natural dyes rather than, you know, the chemical dyes that are available? What was, you know, obviously was it because of your conscious mindset? Were you trying to be sort of look at different options and think outside the box? What was the thinking behind it?
yeah, so first I just wanted to finish and say, then I also use powders that you can buy, which have been ground from the plants, and that the piece that you've got here has been used doing that,
Ah,
using the powders, and I mix it with gum arabic to make watercolor.
okay.
Uh, so your one isn't a vegetable, like onion. It's not an onion skin or an avocado pit. Uh,
Okay.
you wouldn't really get those colors, unfortunately. But
Yeah, I was going to say, so the colors are really vibrant. And what I love is about this piece is with the gold leaf on the top, when the sun comes in during the middle of the day, it kind of just reflects and it's really vibrant.
yeah,
It's been beautiful to kind of watch it change throughout the day, which has been really nice.
yeah, yeah,
Um,
great.
and yeah, so moving on to sustainability, I suppose, within the art world, when you became an artist, was this something that you were very aware of? Was it a conversation that was spoken about a lot? Have you seen it increase in the recent years? How has it been for you?
So I think I was quite um, I was aware of it when I studied fashion,
Yeah.
and you know, it was definitely part of the conversation. There were a lot of people who were, you know, using organic fabrics or very conscious of global warming and kind of doing some political fashion collections and things like that. Um, So I was aware of it, and I was, but to a limited extent, I would say.
Yeah,
It was more like a conceptual idea rather than looking at the materials that I would use and how they were produced and things like that. So it's been a slow kind of process, and I think in the last few years I've been feeling very close to nature and spending a lot of time in nature, and I think, and also I think now it's more urgent as well. There is a sense of urgency, and I feel that every single industry has got to start looking at what they're doing, and from waste to the pollution that what each industry is producing.
100%. Yeah. So just quickly, I forgot to mention at the start, if anyone's got any questions, please type them in the box and comment below, and we will get to them at the end. We should have a bit of time to answer a couple of questions. So please do fire away any questions you might have. But just moving on to that. So yeah, so looking at different industries. So, sustainability is something that we are really aware of, obviously in the fashion world, becoming more in the design world. The art world and sustainability isn't something that's often talked about, and it's not really connected to topics are not connected. Art's generally thought of as one-off pieces, and people don't often think about the impact of things like packaging and so on and so forth. So you as an artist working directly in the industry, can you give us some insight into the sustainable issues that the art world's facing?
Yeah, so I think often in the art world, people hide behind the fact that conceptually we talk about the impact of industry on nature, but it often isn't actually looking at how we do things in the art world. So basically, using paints. So let's start with that.
Yeah.
That's a really big topic, which I've slowly kind of researched into it and discovered that, well, I knew this with oil paints because it's quite obvious. So with oil paints, you use turpentine, which is kind of white spirit, a more expensive version of white spirit, and you use it to mix oil paints to dilute them, and you also use it to clean all of your brushes.
Yeah.
Now, you're not actually supposed to put it down the drain, but let's be honest, most artists do put it down the drain. And it not only damages all the pipes, it's also terrible because it doesn't actually get filtered in the council, filtering stations. So it basically goes into the sea. And that's just really, really terrible. You can keep it in a container and bring it, ask for the council to pick it up.
Okay.
But I'm not sure what they do with these toxic things. What, how do you dispose of these things?
Is that the only alternative at the moment that's offered?
Yeah.
And it is obviously, I suppose that is from a artist responsibility and kind of a consumer responsibility. That's what we can do. We can put it into the council because essentially they are the ones that are meant to be responsible for processing it properly. What they do with it, yeah, as you say,
exactly.
We aren't sure, and there's definitely, I think, a lot of work to be done in that field.
And you have to pay for it as well.
Yes, that's right. There's a cost that you have to pay. So that's fine. Is there any alternative materials that can be used instead of it?
So, I'm just going to move on to the other types of paint. So you've got acrylics, which are not great either because they're essentially plastic, which I wasn't even thinking about before. But of course, the name acrylic it's a type of plastic.
Yeah.
So you're literally creating layers of plastic on a piece of canvas. So it's not only not great for when it's dry and you throw it, let's say you throw a painting or you've got all sorts of scraps of paper with loads of paint, and you throw all of it away. That's landfill. But also it's not great in the drain either because it doesn't get filtered again. So it goes into the sea, and all pigments as well are, unfortunately, a lot of pigments are synthetic pigments.
Yeah.
They're also not great. So on top of the paint itself, you've got the pigments. So I would say watercolor is definitely a bit better. However, because it's mixed with gum arabic, which comes from a tree, mixed with honey as well, so it's quite natural. Unfortunately, a lot of the pigments again are themselves not good for putting down the drain. So I haven't found, except natural dyes and also earth pigments, so literally pigments that are made from rocks. So those are great. So those you can, if you're making watercolor, you can just put that down the drain. That's good.
But again, the pigments are not as strong in color, are they? Or
so with natural dyes, so the ones that I've used in this piece, unfortunately, they're not light fast, which means that they will change color over time.
Okay.
So for a lot of artists, that's a big problem. It's a problem if you sell your work. I've had good feedback actually from people. People are quite excited about the fact that it's going to change, and they love the fact that it's in sync with nature, so they're willing to compromise with that.
Almost creating a story as it's going as well, which is quite...
Yeah, exactly. And so so that's an alternative. However, it's not like acrylics or oils. You can't do the same things with watercolor or gouache. They're different from acrylics and oils. So acrylics and oils are a lot more versatile for sure, in terms of what surface you can use them on, and all sorts of...
And acrylic paint, again, so the disposal of that, the only really alternative is, again, paying for it to be taken away by the council.
No, so with acrylics, if we were in a hot country, you could just leave them in barrels and wait for it to evaporate, and then you've got the plastic is at the bottom and it's dried, so it's fine. But the other alternative is I found a way, to be honest, one of the acrylic brands posted something, and I just followed the video. So it's basically mixing a couple of chemicals together, and the water is separating from the acrylic from the plastic.
Okay.
And the chemicals are bonding that that acrylic. So then you can get rid of the water, and then you are left with an amalgam of the actual plastic with the chemicals. So it's like a, like a wet kind of thing, but it dries, and then you can put it in landfill. Again, I don't think it's not perfect, because landfill isn't a solution.
Yeah.
But right now, I feel that it's a little bit better than putting it down in the sea. Especially, I don't know if you've watched Seaspiracy, but
such a difficult it's such a difficult conundrum, isn't it? Because obviously there's been not enough advance in the material innovation as yet, and yes, there is movement into this area of natural dyes as you're using, but as you say, there's commercial artists who aren't going to use it because of the color, the light fast issue. So there's a lot of work to be done. Do you think we will get to a stage where this is solved at some point, or do you always think it's going to be an issue that we're going to have to face in the art world?
No, I think some people will come up with something clever. Just like in the fashion industry, where people are using waste fabrics to make new types of textiles, and I think as soon as people become more and more aware of it, the demand will be there, and yeah, definitely something will happen. One other thing that I'm thinking about saying, which is quite important, is that we often just look at the impact that what we're doing is having, and we're not having a look at the impact that the manufacturers are having. So when they make paint, they also put paints down the drain. So what I've been doing is, when I do use acrylics, which I don't do very often anymore, but when I do, and I do that thing of separating the two and blah, 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 I only use a brand called Lasco, because they have a self-filtering system.
Okay.
So they actually don't put anything down the drain themselves.
So it's fully circular?
Yeah, it's circular. Yeah.
Wow.
So they're a lot more expensive.
Are they one of the only manufacturers really doing that?
Yeah.
Okay. Is it a topic that's being spoken about a lot in terms of from the manufacturer's perspective?
No, not at all. And they don't even, they should boast about it, you know, they should
Yeah.
really like make a thing of it, but they don't. I've been told this by a guy who sells their products in their shop in Bethnal Green, and they're very specialized, tiny shop. And he went to see the factory in Switzerland. So
Okay.
he saw the circular.
Wow.
Yeah.
I mean, that is definitely, yeah. I mean, if manufacturers can take note and listen to this, because it is an issue, and the art world, the spotlight hasn't been put on them from a sustainable angle. Yes, people are addressing sustainability in terms of, you know, what they're depicting with their art and what they're putting forward from an aesthetic viewpoint, but the materials themselves are often ignored. And that's why artists like yourself are really championing and leading the way in terms of innovation with new materials.
Yeah.
How would you say that other artists and also galleries can become more conscious? And I know we've spoken about materials, but there's aspects such as packaging, there's framing, you know, every part of, you know, every piece of an artwork. How can they do that? And what other ways do you have for them to become more conscious?
Mm. So I would say definitely for an artist, look at the kind of paint that you're using and wonder whether there wouldn't be an alternative that would be better. Otherwise, if you're using oils, definitely get the council to pick up the turpentine.
Yeah.
And if you're using acrylics, actually with Blur, we're going to release a video where I explain exactly how to do the separation between the water and the plastic.
Okay, that's going to be really helpful.
Exactly. So I would say do that. Please do that as an artist. Also, because you can reduce the amount of water that you're using as well by little tricks like, you know, you dry your brush
Yeah.
before you dip it in water, you just take off all of the acrylic that's on it. I mean, I know these things take a bit more time, but as soon as you implement
Yeah.
implement it, it will become second nature.
And it's
So
about making it a habit, you know, it's good habits.
yeah, exactly. So definitely that as an artist, and also packaging. I mean, we talked about this with Aurelia, who's the CEO of Blur,
Yeah.
and it's very complicated actually for art packaging because, especially if you're sending something with glass, you really want to protect it really well. And I'm afraid bubble wrap right now is the only option that's really safe for the artwork. There are some biodegradable bubble wraps. Unfortunately, that for some reason they're really big. Like the bubbles are huge, and you can only buy it in like a massive roll
Yeah.
that most people don't have space for.
But yeah, exactly.
And also, a good friend of mine told me that, unfortunately, this is just mind blowing, but biodegradable things aren't really helpful because when things get into landfill, they spray everything so that there is no carbon emitted from the landfill stuff, or they burn it anyways.
Yeah.
So biodegradable, unfortunately, isn't really that helpful. What is helpful is compostable, you know, home compostable.
Yeah.
I think that's the best.
As long as it's home compostable, because as you say, biodegradable and the words compostable can be meaningless if they have to have certain conditions to compost or biodegrade in, because most of us don't have those conditions.
Yeah.
You know, that's the thing with biodegradable, is that actually it needs to be in a specific humidity or a specific temperature for it to biodegrade.
Yeah, yeah.
So it's to be wary of those terms, isn't it?
Yeah. What I do is that I keep every single bubble wrap that I receive. And if you're a modern person, you receive bubble wrap every week. So I keep everything and I just recycle my bubble wrap.
Yeah.
And as an artist, I have tons because every time I go to the framers, they bubble wrap the thing. And I can't tell you, like literally so much space is used by bubble wrap. And then obviously use cardboard, use paper tape. You know, those things are easy to do.
I did come across last year a company called Rockbox, who have created a crate, and it's more of an initial investment, so there's a higher investment at the start. But what it does is you can, I think, fit sort of two smaller pieces and one larger piece inside this crate. It holds it securely, and it's kind of a fixed crate, so it's really protective of the artwork. And then the crate can be reused infinitely because it's so strong, and it can be sent forth between customer and the supplier. And yeah, you can configure it to different sizes. Again, it's a bit of more of an initial investment, but that is one alternative to these packaging options that we've been discussing. So that's a good one to look out for as well.
Yeah, yeah, no, absolutely.
But yeah, so I think in terms of your work, aside from the sustainable angle, what have you got coming up that you can tell us about? Any exciting projects ahead, or?
Yeah, so I've just been selected for an online exhibition with a little startup called Art from Heart.
Okay.
And or is it Art of Heart? I can't remember. And it's called Voices of Earth.
Okay.
That's kind of perfect for my work. And so we're going to have an online exhibition it's going to be available for a month. So that's quite exciting. And then I've applied to several things. So there's quite a few things in the back burner that I'm not entirely sure yet.
Yeah.
I've been selected for, but certainly an exhibition coming up in the autumn with 3 other artists that I'm in a collective with as well. I've got 2 collectives.
Yeah. And in terms of, I suppose, over the last year, everything's become a lot more digital. There's a lot more online platforms. How have you found that transition to physical to digital, especially as an artist, getting, the impact that you want from people viewing your work? You might not see it as quickly as you would do in a physical exhibition. How has that been? How do you manage that?
Yeah, I have to say myself, I kind of I'm missing something with everything being digital. It's kind of like it's missing this physical aspect of things. So I'm not a huge fan, but that's what we've got.
Yeah.
I mean, exhibitions are starting again, but it's slow, and renting a space when you're not sure how many people will come because of COVID is kind of it's a little bit humble. But yeah, I mean, I haven't done that much. I haven't been that active, I have to say, in kind of digital things. But obviously, everything has been pretty much online for a while in terms of, platforms where I sell my work. It's mostly online, and Instagram, of course, and Facebook. So in a way, it's been digital for quite a while.
Yeah. And I think, I feel really lucky being part of this Blur's home takeover series to actually physically interact with pieces again. It's really, really nice, and I think that's a great way that a bridge that they're kind of crossing between the digital and the physical world, which is really interesting.
Yeah.
I'm just going to have a look to see if any questions have come in. I don't think I have seen any come in at the moment. But yeah, going back to the collaboration with Blur, how has it helped you as an artist? Platforms like this are really kind of leading the future of art, and for emerging artists, and getting a voice within the industry can be difficult. Getting recognition, getting in front of the right people. How has Blur helped you to do that? And has it been an exciting journey with them so far?
Yeah, definitely. I think with Blur, the great thing is that the projects are never just an exhibition or just a digital exhibition. It's always more. So with this project, it's not just, oh, we're just going to rent a little space and have everyone, and then we're going to film and that's it. They actually came to your house, filmed
Yeah.
you, and you were speaking about what you do and the pieces that you've chosen and why, and now we're doing a Q&A. And so it's kind of, it's just really exciting because they always come up with the greatest things, and they really put a lot of heart into everything. And there's a community of us, so it's a small community right now, so that has a nice, and I hope we grow, of course,
Yeah.
but I think right now it's nice because it is
And how important is it as an artist to kind of have that community around you? Because it must, you know, working on your own, you know, I'm as a journalist, you know, I work often on my own, and it's nice to have a network around you. But as an artist, when you're kind of in a creative space every day on your own, how important is it to kind of connect with other artists around you?
yeah, I mean, that's so important. It really is, even if it's just digital. You know, we support each other, we kind of, we're each other's champions, and we give each other's tips, and you know, if a competition is coming up, we'll let people know. And you know, it's kind of, yeah, I think it's essential, because otherwise you go a bit loopy on your own, really.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
There's not many questions coming in, and we're almost through, but I wanted to ask you one last question, I think. What would be your sort of, as for art buyers who want to be more conscious, and I know art is very subjective because it connects to everyone personally, but what's the best things to look out for if you're buying art, and if you want to be more conscious in your decisions, especially about the materials used? How can the artists make that aware? How do customers look out for that?
Well, you know, I suppose reading an artist statement, looking at what, you know, what are their concerns, and whether the environment is something that they're thinking about. And again, coming back to materials, looking at the materials that have been used, maybe preferring things like watercolor, and
Yeah,
gouache is also a bit better than acrylics. You know, things like pastels are also better. But, you know, at the same time, I want people to, you know, buy what their heart tells them.
yeah,
It's so difficult because, you know, you want people to be able to express themselves. So it's
absolutely.
hard.
It is a very, very difficult decision. But do you feel positive overall that change will happen within the art world?
Yeah, I do. I really do. And I think, you know, artists are usually, they care about that kind of thing, you know, even though they might not be aware yet of the problems with materials. I think most artists care, and yeah, usually kind of politically minded, let's say. So yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Well, thank you, Blondie. It's been amazing talking to you, and I think you're one of the, you know, artists that are really pioneering this future of what art can be, the materials we use, and how it's such an important part of the art world, and how we need to kind of discuss sustainability within the art world a lot more. And just to those watching, thank you for your time. Thank you for watching. This is the last episode, as I mentioned earlier, of the Home Takeover series by Blur. And all of the pieces that I showed earlier, all of the pieces that I've curated are available to buy online. And over the next 2 weeks, you can use my discount code, which will give you 10% off. And it's Roddy Clarke 10 in capitals, 10, 10. And that's for the next 2 weeks. So go and have a look at their curation, because there's an amazing collection of artworks and artists, and the stories behind each piece are really, really interesting. And yeah, and go and check out Blondine's work as well. And it's really been lovely chatting to you, and finding out more about the work that you're doing behind the scenes as well. So thank you so much. And
Thank you.
thanks everyone for your time, and I'm sure we'll see you soon.
See you. Bye bye.
Bye bye. Thank you.